Welcome back. Property Source Radio, 222-6397 is the phone number to call. PropertySourceRadio.com is the website. We've got open houses online at WNYOpenHouse.com. You can get there through PropertySourceRadio.com. Website's pretty cool.
I think
I've got like a lot of opens this weekend. So if you guys are in the mood for open houses, WNYOpenHouse.com.
I need a lake house. You got any lake houses?
There's a lot of lake houses available right now, yeah.
Sweet. I'm on it. John, I got a question.
Whoa.
What? What?
I got to introduce the guest.
For
those that just came in.
We didn't do that yet? I thought we did that last segment.
John Antitomaso, Remax Plus, Mike O'Neill, Wells Fargo. Good morning, guys. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Gotta
Thanks
give
for
him the
having us.
official opening.
I thought we did that already. Sorry.
I like the music in the background, you know?
A little early for Jeff.
Yeah.
So
or
back
me.
to your question about lake homes.
Yeah. I want a lake home. I just figured since you mentioned the open houses.
You know, the funny thing is, I talked to a realtor yesterday. She's got a listing on Canisius Lake, and I'm not going to mention names, but the story she told about why they're moving out of there is unbelievable. I mean, and how they got this house. Basically said that they wanted a lake house, okay? They drove on the lake, so the realtor brought him back to their house, who he lived on that same lake, and they was like, wow, I really like this house. He's like, it's not for sale, not for sale, not for sale. So they showed him some more houses, and they came back to the same house where he lived, you know, for some tea or some lunch or whatever.
Sure. Yep.
I really like this house. That's not for sale. Finally, he says, you know what? You can have this house for $550,000.
Wow.
And they bought it.
Really?
And now he can't, he's got to move.
The realtor has to move now.
No. The people that bought it 2-3 years ago have got to move now. And now she's got the listing, and she's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
You know?
It's not worth that much?
It's one of those. It's a lake house, and all lake houses are up
They're
there.
expensive.
You remember we had a waterfront edition.
Yeah. They're more money.
I mean, me personally, I think that the waterfront properties are no longer a second home anymore unless you get that money.
Right, that's what they're doing.
Make that lifestyle change, and you live on the lake.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
with $500,000-$600,000 houses.
I'm gonna.
Would you agree, guys?
I would agree for the majority. However, I'm gonna interject and say I'm gonna make my wife get a second job so I don't have to change my lifestyle because I don't want to live down on the lake. It's depressing in the winter. To me, personal preference, of course. You know what I mean? I always have to give my opinion, right?
And we had a cottage growing up on Canisius. It was great. It was the second we went down there for the summer, right?
Nowadays, you don't.
But now you don't have that because those prices. I mean, our cottage that we bought, my parents said they bought it for like 30-some-odd thousand in the 70s or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they just sold for like 200 something.
Yikes!
It's just like it's just scale of economy. You know.
Oh yeah.
Can't make any more water, so that's the key.
True. Actually, my parents lived over on you know where Rock Beach Road is?
Yeah.
Over on Lake Ontario, and they called it the Gold Coast, I guess now. And
is that White City? Have you ever heard
no,
of White City?
City's where the little houses are. The little ones that look like
correct.
Is that like off of St. Paul there and like heading to Westage at the harbor there? Is that White City?
Yeah, in that area, right? Am I right?
And the Gold Coast is Rock Beach.
It's Rock Beach, yeah. My parents had a house there they bought from my grandfather in the 1968 or 69.
Nice.
They sold it for I believe $35,000 in 1969, and back in the 80s it was sold for $350,000 mid 80s and bulldozed, and then they put a big house up on that property. It was amazing. So imagine that, you're dropping $350 and then bulldozing it on top of it.
It happens if you got the money, right?
Yeah.
No problem.
I got a serious question though.
Talk to me, Goose.
Thank you, John Antitomaso with Remax. I've got to ask you, how in today's market are we buying a house? I mean, walk me through the steps for. Just going through. I want to buy a house. Where do I go first? What do I do?
Well, there's no better time than right now to buy a house. Inventory is accessible out there.
Okay.
Pricing is good depending on where you're going. But usually we work it as a team effort. We try to get you and your wife as a buyer into hopefully our office to talk a little bit about area. And the first step that we take is usually hooking them up with Mike O'Neill. So he can go through the qualifying process. So we know when we start the process that we have a qualified buyer in hand. So when we go put an offer on a property, we're ready to go. But most of the time, the good step that as a team effort that we work with Mike is, if I have a brother or sister that's looking to buy a house, sometimes, they don't want me to know their financial position or a relative. The good first step is to hook them up with Mike, and that's what we usually do. So Mike can talk about the pre-qualification process,
Okay.
and then we can go from there, I guess.
That's a softer way to sell a house to a relative or a friend. I mean, it's good thought. I didn't even think about bringing that up. You know what I mean? Because I am nervous about that too. If I were to call John and say, John, I don't make any money, but can you show me a $500,000 joint? I don't want him to know that I don't have any. You know what I mean? So
let Mike tell you don't
exactly.
have any money.
Yeah, because I don't know Mike. See, so that kind of works good, right?
So Mike, you do pre-quals. What's the deal on those things?
You know, the pre-qualification process has really changed over the years. I mean, 10 years ago, a loan officer would compute some debt-to-income ratio, making sure the house was 28% of the person's income. Total debt was about 36%. And we'd write a letter through like a Word document on our computer that the person looked good to me, pre-approved. And that doesn't cut the mustard in 2010. You know, it just doesn't work that way. So there's programs that we use as lenders they're trademarked by the federal government, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And they're artificial intelligence decision engines, basically. And it looks at the big five.
So you guys don't make the decision. Basically, a computer does.
Pretty much, yeah. Computer does, and we have, you know, underwriters have override capability and things, but they're hesitant to do that because if the computer doesn't take it, then Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac won't, and FHA for in addition to that, won't buy the loan from us.
Okay.
So we want a green light from the computer. If we get a green light, it's pretty much a go. So, and this is very common for all lenders right now. I mean, the industry has been kind of homogenized, if you will. You know, where it's more of a direct intervention with government programs and pricing models and decision engines. So we're going to make sure that the data is input correctly. You know, we're going to look at a person's credit, income, job longevity, assets, and get them into the right program for them, and then make sure that the decision engines like that client in that program.
Okay. So there's a lot of checks and balances.
How many programs are there? There's probably a ton of programs out there.
Well, there's a lot less today than there was 5 years ago.
Wow.
You know, the days of the 100% financing are gone.
Okay.
You know, nowadays it's
does that mean zero down and
so it's going back to reality.
Zero down is gone.
Zero down,
you know,
or negative 30%.
Get out of here.
Serious.
You have to have a down payment.
Oh darn! Oh,
you know the old nickel in the rig. You know, as they say. You know, except for a VA program where veterans can still buy with no money down, which I think is a great service to the veterans that serve our country.
Yes.
But everybody else has got to put something down.
Okay. So it's gone back to reality is what I always say. I mean, you know, there was some scary years where people were signing stuff, forging stuff. I didn't do it yet. I was thinking about it, but I didn't. But where, you know, you're just making up stuff.
I'm sure you would have had some scam that you were thinking about.
I would have thought about it if I sobered up once. So, but, you know, but nowadays you can't do that. There's more checks and balances in the system.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
And seller's concessions. I know we had a guy on here, the guy from First Rochester Mortgage. Remember him?
Yeah.
I forget his name. He doesn't.
Yeah.
That's probably a good thing.
We were talking about the seller concessions for FHA. They were dropping down to 3%, right? That's something that's not.
It's on the table.
It's on the table right now.
Right now, we're not. It's hard to get away with large concessions anyway because the appraisers have to take that seller concession into consideration when doing the appraisal. So, you know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, when a real estate transaction was put together, they would take the price of the house, say it was listed for $140, and they wanted a $6,000 concession. They would just stack it onto the price and say, okay, we'll buy it for $146.
Yeah, right.
But if you do that in 2010, you're likely to have a low appraisal, and the appraiser's gonna neuter the deal and come back and say, okay, the house is worth $140. And then you don't have any money to pull out the concession.
Okay.
You know, so I think what's going to happen at some point.
So concessions are if you don't have any money to put down, that's a gift from the seller for your down or your closing costs. Is that
it's not technically a gift. But if you want to look at it that way, yeah. It's money that comes from the seller as a credit to the buyer at the closing. And right now you still can get 6%, but again, they're talking about moving that downward probably after the first of the year.
What is that going to do for people?
Honestly,
if they don't have money,
I think
right, you're not going to buy, right?
I think it's a null effect because now we're not. In rare cases, we're getting the 6% to appraise into the property.
Yeah,
you know, so I think 3% is more realistic.
Yeah, so you're really not going to see much of an effect because you can't overprice your house anymore anyway.
Right.
Their appraisals are more stringent. So you can't just say, oh yeah, just throw 146 on there and give them 6,000 at closing. The appraiser says, no, it's worth 135 at best. I'm stretching it to do 140, you jerk, right? So
Kind of.
I can say that. You don't have to. You can be
They
politically
leave
correct.
a jerk out, but
All right, yeah. But all right, so that just clears it up. I don't think you see a lot of concessions and deals anyway, right? I mean, would I be
we see less today than we saw 3 or 4 years ago. But yes, we do still see them.
okay?
I just had one where we had a 4% concession yesterday,
Okay,
and the house appraised fine. So it depends.
all
Now
right.
they don't have to take concessions if they, right?
Sellers don't need to, but they want to sell their homes, so they're willing in most
And
cases.
usually,
to
is
take
that
some.
something they say we'll offer, and if you want it, you can take it, or does it have to be on every deal?
Usually the buyer asks. It's not the seller wouldn't volunteer it. Right
That's
up
the
front.
buyer. That comes out of the buyer's pocket, right? So
Essentially.
the money,
seller's
money
pocket.
comes out of the seller's pocket, but
Right.
the buyer's asking for it.
Yeah,
Got
and the buyer usually ends up paying more for the house because it's a negotiation. So the seller usually will jack the price a little bit in some cases. So it could come out of the both
could
pockets.
be sticky.
It could be sticky.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
some
yeah,
people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're paying your 6% one way or the other. Somebody's paying for it. I don't know.
It actually makes sense to do it to get as much of a concession as you can if the home will appraise.
Okay.
Because rates are so low. I mean, so you're financing in that example 146 instead of 140. If you can get the house to appraise,
Yeah.
the difference in payment between 146 and 140 is like $30.
Okay.
Because rates are so low right now. So financially speaking, it makes great sense for a buyer to get a concession, but again, will it work?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to ask, you got to try.
There's just so many buyers out there that could become available with help of a seller's concession. A lot of people are renting right now. They can afford $1,000 monthly payment, but they don't have the downstroke or the down
Right.
payment end
Yeah.
of things. And the combination of getting the seller to contribute and also help with that ability gets them into a house versus a rental situation.
Okay. That's nicely said.
We got to take a break here, kids. It's been fun. We'll be right back. Stick around.